Welcome to the 3026 Breakdown. I am your host, John Lee, and today I have a very special video I want to talk to you about on the idea of sports investing versus regular investing. Because there's a lot of bad information out there, and one of the things that you get told over and over again is that, okay, the stock market will give you an 8% return, right? That's what's pretty consistently talked about. But really, it's 5%. This year, the last year, it returned 5%. And even worse, that's not guaranteed. As you'll see when we get to my Vanguard, which is Warren Buffett basically made a bet with big hedge fund managers that if he could put $1 million into a mutual fund with Vanguard versus them picking stocks, he would do better. And he's like $16 million ahead. It's like, spoiler alert, my Vanguard returned 3.9% in 2016. So way, way below what you'll see here when we see what top MMA handicappers tracked on betmma.tips are returning. Here you'll see average ROI of between 12 and 22%. With some guys like Mike Jeans, the owner of betmma.tips, is returning 68%. You're not going to get that on any Wall Street deal that doesn't involve some sort of high-level connections or insider trading. It's just not going to happen. Now, what people say is, oh, it's gambling. And yes, it is gambling, but so is the stock market. The only difference is that when it comes to this type of gambling, you're usually dealing with touts and people who are like bookmakers, whereas when you're dealing with the stock market, you're dealing with guys with degrees and nice suits like I have. And that fools people into thinking that they're doing better than they actually are. It's been widely proven that a monkey throwing darts at a dartboard would find better stock picks than the average person. You cannot beat the market, right? When people talk about beating the market, they're lying. You can check Seeking Alpha. You can see this in a million different ways. There's been a ton of studies. You're way better off not trying to pick stocks. In fact, I'm arguing in this video that you would be better off doing the research yourself or tailing a high-end MMA handicapper, because that will give you better returns, unlike my Vanguard here, which returned 3.9% in 2016. These are my real numbers. This is from my Vanguard account. I obviously didn't put my account number on there because I don't want to get robbed, but this is real, man. That's $21,000 in and $1,700 returned over like 3 years. That's not very good. My MMA gambling, I started with $150 last year, and now I have $1,700. That's a much, much better return. I basically returned almost as much as I returned in 3 years of Vanguard in 1 year of smart MMA betting. And yeah, I lost a little bit. I had my ups and downs, but the market goes ups and downs too. As you can see in this graph, it goes up, it goes down. The same thing happens. The big concern that I think a lot of people have is the fear of wipeout, but you can manage that by managing your bankroll in the correct way. By only betting one unit, which is 1% of your bankroll, you're never going to be putting more than 3 to 5% of your total money on the line, which is way, way less, ironically, than you can lose in the stock market crash. Ask anyone who lost half their portfolio in the big 2008 crash how much they're willing to lose. The big problem here is what's known as opacity. And opacity is this idea that you don't know what's going on. With MMA fighting, with gambling in general, there's a lot of bad information or misinformation out there. But with stocks, there's the same stuff. How many times have we seen Enrons? How many times have we seen cooked books? How many times have we seen stock evaluations that have been pumped up either illegally or with a strategic mind to dump the stocks? This stuff happens all the time. It's not like the stock market is some safe place where you stick your money and you just get a safe return. But the difference is, again, it's the way we think about these things. The term gambling has a negative connotation to it, right? So when you think about gambling, you think, oh, you're going to lose. You think degenerates. You think people being addicted to it. But you don't think the same things with stock markets, but there are people who are addicted to stock markets. I had a friend growing up whose dad actually had to go to rehab because he was addicted to buying stocks. He would just like buy stocks all day, like penny stocks, stupid stocks, and he lost like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. What he was doing was just like gambling. So the idea here is that you have to know what you know and what you don't know. And just because there's a bunch of smart Ivy League people and they tell you that everything's okay and that these companies are trustworthy doesn't make them trustworthy. Just recently, we saw Lenny Dykstra, former MLB star. He was on the street talking about his stock picks, and then when they did investigations, he was not tracking things, he was not putting in positions. And this was a guy who was widely touted as one of the best stock pickers alive. In fact, he just wrote a book called Nailed, where he literally just goes and lies his ass off, talking about how he was able to make all these stock picks and everyone was out to get him, and he never did anything wrong. But that's what you're dealing with when you deal with the stock market. Like, the financial service industry is not a clean industry. I would argue that you're doing better if you tail high-end MMA investors. And I say MMA because MMA has market inefficiencies. If you look at the lines in MMA, they're often wrong. That's why if you bet underdogs, even if you win 40% of the time, you're still going to turn a profit, right? I went 8 underdogs. I went 50-50 and made an 8-unit profit at the end of last year. That's not going to happen on your stocks, man. So understanding the math of this, understanding proper bankroll management, there actually is an opportunity to diversify your portfolio. And I don't recommend doing like all of your money into sports investing, but you do what Tim Ferriss recommends with angel investing. If you know anything about angel investing, you're investing in these startups and the rate of failure is really high. It's like 60%. But every now and then you hit an Uber or an Airbnb and you get paid off in the tens of millions of dollars. That's how Tim Ferriss became a millionaire. And he recommends that you take 90% of your portfolio and keep it in, mutual funds, bonds, safe things. But then you take another 10% and you break it down into 1% and put it into more speculative ventures. So 1% of your portfolio, for example, going into sports investing, 1% going into startup investing, 1% going into emerging industries like biotech or medical marijuana, where the valuations could be really high, but they may not actually come to fruition. This is going to allow you to not only have safer money management, it's going to give you better rates of returns and, through diversification, allow you to keep your money safer. Now, I know this sounds a little crazy, but I recommend that you go to betmma.tips and you check out some of the statistics there, especially Mike Janes, who's the owner of the site. Look at some of his ROI tools, look at some of his arbitrage tools. You're going to see that there is consistent money to be made, especially on things like the overs, right? I think the other thing people think is that the only way to gamble on MMA is to pick a winner. But there's things called totals. I can bet that a fight is going to go over 2.5 rounds, and no matter who wins, as long as they go past the 12-minute, 31-second mark, I get paid. So there's all these other ways that we can like mess with our payouts here to make sure that our money is very safe and that our returns are insured. I think as you go forward, you're seeing more and more of this sports investing. I just talked to someone recently who has a sports investing firm focused clearly on baseball. I talked to another guy in Miami who's trying to get a college football one off the ground. I believe this is the future of investing. I think in 10 to 12 years, we're going to look at sports investing as just another way to diversify your portfolio. And there's an amazing opportunity right now in the MMA space because the bookmakers don't understand the lines. They don't understand who favorites are. Amanda Nunes last week at UFC 207 was a plus 160 underdog to Ronda Rousey. That means you got $160 for every $100 you bet. I put $500 down and got $1,100 back. That's something that was a terrible line. Everyone who knows MMA knew Ronda Rousey was done. We all knew she was mentally not into it. But the public is stupid, and the bookmaker's idea is to get money on both sides. And that's the market inefficiency that can really be exploited because they're not setting lines based on what they think is going to happen. They're setting lines to get even money on both sides. And that is a market inefficiency that we can exploit. And you don't have to worry about these giant companies like JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley that are too big to fail going out of business and taking all of your money with you. Or even worse, getting sucked into some pyramid scheme by a Bernie Madoff with charisma and having all of your money go down the drain. So again, I'm not recommending that you take all of your portfolio and throw it in sports investing. I think 1% of your portfolio is more than enough, but the diversification opportunity is there, and the MMA market is extremely inefficient related to other sports bets. So right now, there is a great opportunity, and it's worth getting on betmma.tips, looking at some of the guys who are making a lot of money and tailing them. Thanks for watching. This is going to wrap up another fun-filled edition of the 3026 Breakdown. Be sure to give me a thumbs up below, leave a comment telling me that I'm stupid for investing in sports gambling, and share it with your friends. And I will talk to you very soon.